started a chase. We got him at San Jacinto Pacific. Out there. 13, you're out there.
This time, I have something not very common. We're going to take a look into the scientific happening that happened, which was the Space Shuttle Challenger. We will be discussing shocking facts about the Space Shuttle Challenger, which I am sure you weren't aware of. To begin with, the Challenger did not explode. At a height of 46,000 feet, the Space Shuttle was enveloped in a haze of flames barely 73 seconds after takeoff, 14,000 meters. It seemed to be an explosion, the news reported it as such, and NASA officials originally classified it as such. However, further study revealed that there was no detonation or explosion in the sense that we typically define the terms. In the freezing conditions, a seal in the shuttle's right solid rocket booster meant to stop leakage from the gas tank throughout liftoff damaged and cracked, allowing hot gas to flood through the hole. The fuel tank exploded and tore apart, culminating in a massive blaze of liquid oxygen and hydrogen, which many mistook for an explosion. The astronauts in the shuttle did not die immediately. The Challenger stayed intact for a little time after its fuel tank collapsed, and it continued going skyward. Nevertheless, without its fuel tank and rockets supporting it, the orbiter was quickly torn apart by enormous aerodynamic forces. The parts, including the crew department, flew to a height of 65,000 feet before crashing into the Atlantic Ocean beneath. The passengers of the Challenger most likely withstood the first fragmentation of the shuttle, but they lost consciousness owing to the loss of pressure in the cabin and perished soon from oxygen depletion. However, the cabin reached the water's surface at over 200 miles per hour, 2 minutes and 45 seconds after the shuttle disintegrated, and it's unclear if any of the crew members recovered consciousness in the last seconds of the descent. The Challenger tragedy was only seen by a small number of people on live television. Despite popular belief that millions of people saw the Challenger's horrible fate occur live, in addition to the hundreds who witnessed on the ground, the majority of individuals watched film reruns of the incident. Once the shuttle fell apart, most prominent channels covering the launch cut away, and the disaster happened at a time, 11:39 a.m. Eastern Time on a Tuesday, when most Americans were at work or school. The launch was televised live on CNN, although cable television was a new phenomenon at the time, and sometimes even relatively few people possessed satellite dishes. Even though the general public was not watching live, NASA had organized for a satellite transmission onto TV sets in many schools because of McAuliffe's participation in the trip, and many of the youngsters who watched recall the accident as a watershed point in their lives. Following the disaster, some speculated that the White House pressed NASA to deploy the shuttle in the schedule for President Ronald Reagan's State of the Union speech on January 28th. NASA officials were under a lot of stress to get the Challenger's voyage moving after it had been delayed many times, partly owing to problems putting the last shuttle, Columbia, back on the ground. However, claims that pressure was applied from above, notably from the Reagan White House, in trying to link the shuttle or its crews immediately to the State of the Union appear to be politically driven and unsupported by facts. In the wake of the disaster, Reagan delayed his yearly speech to the country and instead spoke to the country about the Challenger. The 650-word talk finished with a touching excerpt from American pilot John McGee Jr.'s poem, High Flight, which he wrote while traveling for the Royal Canadian Air Force during World War II. We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them. This morning, as they prepared for their voyage and waved farewell, slipping the surly bounds of the earth to touch the face of God, Reagan said about the Challenger crew. 2 big fragments of the Challenger spacecraft were found on a local beach more than a decade after the catastrophe. Salvage activities salvaged hundreds of pounds of metal from the Challenger within a day of the disaster. The astronauts' corpses were discovered in the rubble of the crew compartment in March 1986. By the time NASA concluded their Challenger inquiry in 1986, all of the key elements of the spacecraft had been recovered, but the majority of the spacecraft lingered in the Atlantic Ocean. 2 significant chunks of the Challenger washed ashore in the water at Cocoa Beach, 20 miles south of the Kennedy Space Center at Cape Canaveral, bringing up flashbacks of the accident a decade later. The 2 barnacle-encrusted chunks, one measuring more than 6 feet broad and 13 feet long, were thought to have been linked and originated from the shuttle's left wing flap, according to NASA. The newly discovered bits were deposited in 2 obsolete missile silos alongside the other shuttle debris, which numbers over 5,000 pieces and weighs around 250,000 pounds after being authenticated. I hope it was something different and you enjoyed this video as much as I did, compiling all these facts together for you. We will be back with another video. Till then, take care of yourself.